Hey, welcome to Friday night's video. Tonight we're going to talk about a huge issue in the studio. These are some of the most important tools you have. That is noise, saturation, and distortion. It's underrated how important they are because basically if you look at now, I'll try to relate this that normally I do equalization after I do sound sculpting because I'm pretty sure I know what type of saturation, noise, and harmonics I want to add into it as far as distortion. And you go through my channel here and find the videos that are on distortion, saturation, complex waveforms, harmonic distortion. So you have a pretty harmonics, so you have a really good understanding of what we're talking about here and how important it is. Because let's take your vocal as a transducer. This is the most basic transducer that you're familiar with to vocalize. You know, it's like if I'm going to vocalize a note, any note, that basically what's happening is the fundamental is that note, that sinusoid. So after that, you have a couple things happening. You've got noise that's going to be added into it. Noise is very simple that for the most part, even if you listen to a seashell, you have noise. You can hear the noise in a seashell. Noise is everywhere. So, you know, you have to understand when you're dealing with noise. I break down noise when I'm working in the studio to like white noise, pink noise, violet noise, blue noise, purple, gray, brown and red noise, those types of noises to add in there. Electronics in your microphone is basically there's white noise bouncing around all of in there, and you add electricity, it becomes like a pink noise. That's a real simple concept to understand. So, you know, between a real expensive microphone and a cheap microphone, the noise is different, the saturation is different, and the distortion is different. Even in odd harmonics or full spectrum distortion noise saturations. So you can make your, you know, cheap microphone sound like $1 million microphone if you want. It's not that difficult to do. So noise is one of the hugest things you have to work with. Noise itself and the noise files. You want to download these noise files, find some real good ones or buy some real good ones of these noise files and keep them on hand to work with. They're huge tools because then you get into distortion, and distortion's huge. You've got even harmonics, odd harmonics, you know, full saturation harmonics, and clipping harmonics. You know, you've got clipping harmonics that are like a square wave that's normally from overdriving the amperage capabilities of a circuit. Then you'll get like sawtooth harmonics. It's more like a cello or violin kind of distortion that's from overdriving the speed capabilities of a circuit. Which that's not as important as it used to be because nowadays you don't have to worry about too much. People buy old gear because it does that crap when basically they just need to buy a damn distortion pedal and learn how to use the damn thing. So, I mean, you know, I'm not really into that nostalgic crap because, I mean, I can buy myself a distortion pedal and do the same thing they're doing when they bought themselves a $500,000, you know, board or something. So anyway, these are very simple things that you want to really study to really understand and utilize because basically, like let's say noise. I've got a vocal going across here, and I've taken this brown noise file, and I've automated to go up and down is to follow the vocals levels. Does that make sense? And then I'll highlight them all, and I'll bring them up into the vocal or down or whatever until, you know, I'm getting the kind of noise saturation I want. Noise and saturation are normally saturation is even and odd harmonics that you bring up into there, and that's a saturation, which is a little bit different than clipping that causes full spectrum or full spectrum harmonics, whereas noise causes complete full spectrum. There's no harmonics going on. It's just every sound that's possible in the spectrum is being run across the spectrum. So, but you look at all those things on a spectrogram and you'll see the difference. So basically, that's, you know, noise is a huge concept. And if you get yourself some blue, brown, gray, pink, violet noise that you really, you know, can utilize those. I also keep a file that's a mixture of white and pink noise for emulating electronics. And these are huge tools, just the noise itself. And when you get to like, let's say I've got a tone generator here that's just shooting at 440. And I've got Trash 2 that I love this one because I'll show you I've got some presets on it that will give me even and odd harmonics, odd harmonics, saturation, and square clipping. So I'll move this over to here, and this thing you can add you can add with this plug-in very simply. I wanted to move this over here because you need it in the way. And you can add different degrees of wet and dry into it. And you can also adjust it. So if I go to my even odd harmonics, this is what's causing these even harmonics. And I can bring this down, or I can torque this or whatever to change it, you know, to make it a little bit more aggressive, less aggressive. And I can go from wet to dry and anywhere in between. So I'll move this out of the way because you've got a pretty good understanding of that, what I'm trying to do. And I told you the videos to watch. Now what's happening with that is basically this is just showing a sine wave. But if I go on here and I'll go, okay, this is just even harmonics, and you can see them laid out. There's some saturation going on here because the algorithm doesn't work perfectly. I mean, it wasn't built by NASA, so you know, I mean, there's a little bit of saturation noise going on between these harmonics, so you got to kind of watch out for that. You watch, this is odd harmonics. You see them come up, and all of a sudden these even harmonics stop dropping, and then you can see like even and odd harmonics. Now I've got a full saturation of loud, even and odd harmonics across there. And if I go down here, here's a saturation that's like a normal saturation that's very low, even and odd harmonic saturation going on here. That's very clean, that I can adjust with the levels that I have set and the parameters that I have here to adjust on Trash 2, which it's amazing that that simple plugin that they call garbage and trash does such an awesome job at sound sculpting, right? So, and then you've got like square clipping here. This is square clipping that's going to add basically odd harmonics and a lot of full spectrum saturation going on here, which is about as close you're going to get to noise in the off of the fundamental. Noise would be everything. You would see this completely full with a noise file. If I had it was run a noise file in there, so you can run your noise files on there and see what's happening. The concept of this is that now after you get done, you EQ your vocal a little bit to try to make it sound as good as it sounds, and then after you do that, bring the volume down a little bit and then start working it with these different types of noises, the different types of saturations, the different types of even and odd harmonics, or the loud even and odd harmonics, and you can sculpt the sound. Because basically what's happening in the transducer in your mouth is that it's producing a sinusoid. If I say this note, and then it's adding noise, then it's adding saturation that we've talked about, and it's adding even and odd harmonics at different levels that make my transducer unique. Does that make sense? So when I'm singing, it sounds different than most other people. Does that make sense? And it can be very you can distinguish it from other vocalists, obviously, right? So you can sculpt that almost any way you want with saturation, with noise, with even odd harmonics, and an equalizer. So, because if you watch the videos I had on equal loudness contour and equalization, that you'll understand that if you start following boosting in the areas the equal loudness contour dictates, so that your ear hears it the way it's supposed to, you'll immediately start to hear that, you know, where the issues are in that vocal, that you know, you start boosting the bass end, shooting the high end up, boosting it up a little bit around 1,000 hertz, you know, and then dropping it down between 2 and 5, you know, you'll start to really hear what's going on, and then sweeping for problem issues that, you know, that those used in conjunction to really sound sculpt the voice to it, you're making the vocalist sound as good as possible, that you're making him sound as badass as you possibly can by really sculpting his sound. And that doesn't mean sculpt him till he sounds like Mickey Mouse, or all of a sudden you make him sound like Marilyn Monroe. You know, it's like this country, you know, singer R&B dude and baby booby. You know, you don't want him to stand like, you know, I mean, you can screw it up too. But, you know, you have to understand that if you want to emphasize what's beautiful about his voice and just clean it up and, you know, sculpt it a little bit, that this is what the tools you have that can make it just sound. He can go from that R&B singer or whatever he is, that, you know, to it just sounding just awesome, dude. And these tools are invaluable to get that done so that you can actually sound the sculpt the sound. So, you know, when anybody talks to you about noise and distortion and saturation, you understand the importance of these things and what they can do. And you should experiment it, even if it's your own self. You know, right, sit down and, my dog has fleas and the fleas are lame, you know, and practice singing, and then sit down with this stuff and really start adding in there. Really start adding some of the different noise files like I talked about, and, you know, adding it to it, and then adding different types of, you know, different types of different types of saturations, you know, even harmonics and saturations, to try to sculpt it, you know, even before you EQ it. And really look at what's going on, listen to it, and look at it on the spectrometer, so you can really see that, you know, you're adding these even harmonics into it little by little, like you've got it completely dry there, you know, to where it's almost none. You know, they've all dropped off there. They should drop off to nothing. And then, you know, you start coming up into it to where, you know, it starts to bring a little bit in, you know, or a little bit more, 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 you know, and you will find that, and if you can put a whole bunch of these plugins on in unison, you know, or in series, to where you can add a little bit of even harmonics there, a little bit of odd, a little bit of saturation over here, a little bit of clipping over here. No, go back and go, oh, I don't know, that's starting to sound really good, but I think I need to boost up the noise file here a little bit. Just a little bit more of that brown noise, because it's a brown noise is so smooth, you know, and you'll be surprised that what huge tools these are, that you can just go from having like even a cello that sounds mediocre to having a cello that just sounds smooth as silk, bro, and it's just beautiful. Same thing with a voice. You've got a vocal that really needs work. You know, I've got this female vocalist one time, and she had a really good voice, but there was this upper end harmonic crap happening, and it just made me crazy. And it took a while before I finally figured out how to get some noise in it and some saturation and some even harmonics, and then I had to EQ it afterwards until it just sounded beautiful, bro, you know, because her vocals had some problems. You know, it needed some help, you know, and it might have been also that, you know, I mean, you can, you know, your equipment, not everybody can go out and buy $50,000 microphones, you know, to work with. So it might have been that you don't have that kind of equipment. So you're going to have to take your, you know, $1,000 microphone and make it sound like it's a $50,000 microphone by using noise, distortion, and saturation, even in odd harmonics, so that it sounds like it's a $50,000 microphone, making her sound like she's using a $50,000 microphone, you know, in a beautiful studio, you know, that costs $12 bazillion, you know, and it's like sometimes I will use this before I use a $50,000 microphone, because I can make it sculpt her voice exactly the way I want it, not have to go through 20 microphones and none of them sound exactly the way I want it. This way I can make her voice sound exactly the way I want it. I can clean it up perfectly. So experiment around with this and really take to heart how important this is, so that as you do this to each of your individual tracks, that when you mix them together, that you've got really beautiful sound sculpted tracks to mix together. That sometimes you get tracks that are just beautiful, you don't have to mess with it at all. Sometimes you have to mess with them very little. Sometimes you have to mess with them a little bit more. Sometimes you really got to mess with that vocalist or that bass or whatever, and everywhere in between, you know. So you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, and sometimes you don't have to pull out this stuff to go to work on it, because it just sounds great, bro. I ain't messing with nothing. That vocal sounds awesome, or his bass sounds bad, and I'm just not touching it. You know, sometimes you do. And when you do, you want to have good tools and understand how to use these things to make it sound badass, because that's your job. Whether you are working on your own stuff or somebody else's stuff, your job is to make them sound magic. So this will help you make magic. Anyway, peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.